This is the last thing I'll say before I disappear. My name is Tayo. I am 30 years old and I want to tell my story. I want to tell it before the world forgets me, before my son grows up hearing only what people said about me, not what really happened. They called me a murderer. They said I killed my husband, the only man I ever truly loved. But if only they knew what I went through. If only they knew what I survived. If only they knew how deeply I loved Ola. Ola. Ola and I met when I was 17. He was just a year older. We were young, stupid, but so sure that what we had was real. And I used to sit under the mango tree in front of my mother's shop. Ola would sit beside me and hum his songs. He would dream out loud. He said he would become a famous singer. I said I wanted to draw people and paint stories. We promised to chase our dreams and never stop loving each other. But promises made in youth are often broken. Years passed. Life took us in different directions. I moved to Lagos to study art and chase the dream that burnt in me. Ola stayed back in Ibadan. One day, I heard he had entered a singing competition and won. He got signed to a big label. I was happy for him, even though I cried that night, wondering if he had forgotten me. I never imagined we would meet again. But we did. And that's where everything began again. This time, too strong, too deep, too dangerous, and eventually, too painful. I had gone to a concert with some of my classmates from art school. I wasn't even planning to attend, but something pulled me there. Maybe it was fate. Maybe it was pain looking for comfort. The lights were bright. The music was loud. And people were dancing and singing along. Then, the host introduced the next artist, Ola. My heart stopped. The same Ola. My Ola. The one who used to walk barefoot just to get to my house. The boy who once carved my name into his wooden desk in school. He came on stage wearing a white shirt and black trousers. Simple, but he carried himself like he belonged there. His voice filled the air, soft at first, then strong. The crowd loved him, but I couldn't move. My legs refused to walk. I stared like a statue. Tears ran down my face before I could stop them. When he finished the song, our eyes met. Just for a second. But it was enough. He saw me. After the show, he found me. He was standing near the exit when he touched my shoulder. Tayo, he said. I turned. The boy was gone. A man stood before me, taller, stronger, but with the same eyes. Ola, I whispered. And just like that, the years melted away. We sat at the back of the event center and talked like we had never been apart. We spoke about dreams, disappointments, success, and regrets. That night, he asked for my number. The next day, he called, and from then on, we were together again. Lagos is not kind to love, but somehow ours survived. We spent every free moment together. I would hit Suya near Ojuelegba Bridge. He would sing in the car, and I would sketch his profile in my notebook. We were happy. Even the world around us was moving too fast. We didn't have much, but we had each other. Ola was my first man, the only man I'd ever known. After a few months, Ola proposed. It wasn't the kind of proposal you see on TV. No camera, no crowd, just the two of us, inside a small flat in Surulere. He knelt beside me and said, Tayo, I've been lost for years, but when I saw you again, I knew I found home. I said yes, even before he brought out the ring. We got married in a small ceremony with only a few friends and family, especially Ola's dad and brother. That day, I thought my life was complete. A year later, we had a son. We named him Toluwani, my light, my heart, the child who reminded me every day that something good still lived inside me. We lived quietly, simply, but there was always a shadow over our joy. His name was Anthony. Ola was talented. Everyone knew that. But the music industry in Lagos was not built for soft arts. His label treated him like a product. They told him what to sing, how to dress, who to be, and when he tried to speak up, they shut him down. Sometimes he came home with bruises, mental and physical. He never said much, but I saw it in his eyes. He was breaking. The worst part was the parties, those so-called industry parties, where men with money and power controlled everything. They mocked him, bullied him, called him names. Once, he came home with a torn shirt and tears in his eyes. Tayo, I am tired, he said. I don't know who I am anymore. I held him that night, my hands shaking. He complained about the beatings, the bullies, about the demands of the label, which was against his wishes. I begged him to leave the label. We will find another way, I said. Even if we have to start over. He was threatened. If you leave the label, you will die. There are rumors of deaths here and there. Deaths they incurred on him just to have a hold on him. After many months, he finally agreed to pack his things and walk away from the fame and pain. But the bullies didn't forget. They followed him, and the real horror began after that. After Ola left the label, we thought life would become peaceful. But peace never came. Instead, we began to notice strange things. His former manager would send threats disguised in advice. His tires got slashed twice in 1 month. One night, our windows were broken with stones. He was beaten at the spot where he went to shoot his video. Ola petitioned the police, but they didn't help the matter. There were counter petitions. The police had to back down. He tried to move on. He started writing new songs and producing from our small living room. But fear became our visitor. I was afraid every time he stepped out. He started walking with a hoodie, sunglasses, and keeping low. Anthony, who had disappeared for some months, suddenly returned. He said he wanted to support Ola's new journey. I didn't believe him. Ola told me to forgive him, that he had changed, but I knew better. Our home became a prison. Ola grew quieter. Some days he didn't speak at all. I would hold his hand and he would pull away like I bound him. He smiled less, he ate less. Our son would climb on his lap and he would just stare at him, not speaking. The man I married was fading and I didn't know how to bring him back. He got an invitation to perform at a small show in our community. I told him to say no. He said, Tayo, I need to sing. If I hide forever, I will lose myself completely. I nodded. I should have screamed. I should have begged. I should have said no. That night, I dressed in myself, a simple black shirt, blue jeans, and a chain with his mother's picture that he never took off. I kissed his forehead. He kissed my hand. Pray for me, he whispered. I always do, I said. I watched him walk out the door. That was the last time I saw him standing tall. Halfway through his performance, the lights went out. People screamed. When they came back on, Ola was on the floor. Blood on the shirt. 3 boys had jumped him backstage. They beat him with iron. Nobody caught them. The show continued like nothing happened. They said he slipped, but I knew the truth. After the attack, Ola refused to go to the hospital. He said he was fine, but he wasn't. He coughed blood. He couldn't sleep. He barely stood. I called a nurse who lived nearby, Nurse Eniton. She came every day. She cleaned his wounds, gave him medicine. She held my hand once and said, Tayo, prepare your heart. I sat beside him every night. Sometimes he'd wake up crying. Sometimes he whispered names I didn't know. Don't leave me, I would say. You're all I have. But he was sleeping. Every breath took more effort. Even our son stopped playing. He would sit quietly by the door, watching his father fade. Then one morning, I touched his chest, and it was still. His eyes were open, but he was gone. No sound, no struggle, just silence. I screamed until my voice left me. My world ended in that moment, but the real pain was still coming. Ola's body had not even been buried when the whispers began. Anthony told people I was careless, that I didn't get help fast enough. Some said I was jealous of his fame. Others said the child wasn't his. It spread fast, like fire. Even his father refused to greet me at the wake. The father became the enemy number 1 because of Ola's wealth. He started talking to bloggers to put pressure on me to admit I killed his son. He demanded for a DNA to accept Toluwani as his grandchild. You killed him, someone said behind my back. She's a witch, another added. I stayed quiet. I held my son close and cried when no one was looking. But it got worse. I found a letter written by Ola before he died. In it he said he was scared, that people wanted him gone. I showed it to his father. He tore it. You want to shift blame? He shouted. Your hands are not clean. The worst pain came when the police came. They said they had to investigate the cause of death. I wasn't even allowed to cry in peace. Ola had been buried. His body was exhumed. Autopsy began endlessly with no results. Arrests were made with no concrete evidence. The main witness to all the bullies refused to talk. He refused to show himself to the police. Too many bloggers became famous due to Ola's death. The slogan and hashtag "Justice for Ola" were on every tongue on the street. They demanded a DNA test for Toluwani. They said they needed to confirm if Ola was really his father. My legs failed me. I begged. I cried, but no one listened. I watched them swab my son's mouth like he was a suspect, the same boy who looked like Ola's twin, but they didn't care. Ola's father was having a free day with the bloggers, granting endless interviews. He became a celebrity over his yet-to-be-buried son's death. When the result came out, it showed 99.9% match. But I decided to keep the evidence or the result. I wanted Ola's father to pay money for his grandson's DNA, which he refused, yet demanded DNA to accept Toluwani as his grandchild. Still, the damage was done. People now looked at me like a liar, a killer, a disgrace. My own neighbors avoided me. One woman pulled her child away from mine. "Don't go near him," she said. "His mother is cursed." I stopped going out. I stopped eating. I sat in the corner of the room holding Ola's last shirt. I smelt it every day, just to feel close to him. My sketches turned dark. I drew eyes, only eyes, eyes that judged, eyes that followed me. I was dying, slowly, and no one saw me. I wasn't arrested, but I was tried every day. In the market, on WhatsApp groups, the Facebook pages. Bloggers discusses me every day. Even the taxi drivers gossiped about me. "She used charm to hold him, and when it expired she ended him," one said. To another, not knowing I was sitting in the back of the keke, I wanted to disappear. Even the walls of our house felt like they were whispering. I started questioning myself. Was there something I missed? Could I have saved him? The community women refused to allow me join the widows' prayer group. One said, "She's not one of us. Her hands are stained." I heard another mother say she would rather her daughter marry a drunkard than a singer. My late husband's name had become a curse in people's mouths. I went to church one Sunday, hoping for comfort, but the pastor used me as an example of hidden wickedness in sweet faces. I walked out and never returned. Even my family started distancing themselves. My mother stopped calling. My sister said I should move back to the village to avoid further disgrace, but I stayed in Lagos. Not because I was strong, but because of Toluwani. He deserved truth. He deserved memory. He deserved me, even if broken. One rainy night, I heard the knock. It was Nurse Enito. She held an envelope and wore a serious face. "This is from Ola," she said. I opened it with shaky hands. Inside was a voice recording, saved on a flash drive, and a scribbled letter. He had recorded it the week before he died. "If you are listening to this, it means I am gone," his voice said. He spoke about the fear, about the beatings, about Anthony. He even mentioned names of men in the industry who threatened him. He ended it by saying, "Tayo, don't let them silence you. Take care of our son. You were the only peace I had." I felt the ground that night. I wept louder than I did the day he died. Because now I had the truth, but what would I do with it? The next morning, I took the flash drive to the only journalist I trusted, Morenike, a woman who once interviewed Ola years ago. She listened quietly, then looked at me and said, "They will come for you, Tayo. Are you ready?" I wasn't, but I said yes. A week later, Morenike's platform released the story. They played the recording. They listed names. They showed pictures of injuries Ola had. Within hours, it went viral. Twitter exploded. Instagram reels. YouTube commentary. For the first time, people saw me as human, not a witch, not a liar, but a wife in pain. Some people still doubted, but many believed. Hashtags started. Hashtag justice for Ola. Hashtag protect our artists. Hashtag Tayo speaks. I didn't care for fame. I just wanted his name cleared. I wanted our son to grow up knowing his father was brave, not weak, not broken. The police called again. This time, they apologized. They reopened Ola's case. They questioned Anthony. They even raided the old record label office. Justice was slow, but at least it had started. Anthony tried to fight back. He made a video calling me a desperate woman seeking attention, but people saw through it. One of his old friends leaked their chat where Anthony admitted to setting Ola up. He was arrested that week. The news reported it with big headlines. My phone rang non-stop. Everyone wanted to talk to me. News channels, celebrities, even pastors, but I refused. I stayed home. I stayed quiet. I was not a star. I was a widow, a mother, a woman learning how to breathe again. Still, every time I looked at Ola's picture, I whispered, "We are winning. We are winning." It wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about truth, about letting our son grow in a world where his father was honored, not forgotten. Toluwani didn't speak much after his father died. He only cried, or stared, or hid behind doors. But one morning, as I was preparing breakfast, he walked to me, held my wrapper, and said, "Daddy." I froze. My hands dropped the spoon. "What did you say?" I asked. "Daddy," he said again. I fell to the floor, crying. It wasn't just a word. It was memory. It was connection. It was healing. That day, I played Ola's music again, loud, for the first time in months. Toluwani danced, he laughed, and I laughed too, even though it hurt. Maybe we were broken. Maybe the world will never forget the lies. But in that moment, with my son dancing and my husband's voice filling the room, I felt alive again. The courtroom was cold, not just in temperature, but in spirit. I sat behind the prosecutor, holding my son's favorite toy in my hand like a talisman. Anthony looked different. No expensive suit, no cameras chasing him, just a man hiding behind lawyers and arrogance. Morenike was there too, taking notes, and so was Nurse Eniton. When the recording was played in court, the silence was deep. You could hear people breathe. Some cried. I did too. The judge listened. Witnesses spoke. The old friends of Ola finally confessed how scared he was, how he was warned not to bite the fingers feeding him. The truth stood tall, unbending. It was no longer my voice alone. After 3 months, the verdict came. Anthony was found guilty, not just of conspiracy, but of criminal intimidation, tampering with medical evidence, and unlawful assault. He was sentenced to 14 years. Ola's father was ordered to ensure a befitting burial was given to Ola within 7 days. The courtroom erupted. Some clapped. I didn't. I just sat there, holding Toluwani, who kept whispering, "Daddy is happy now." "Yes, baby," I said. He's smiling. A week after Ola's burial, we visited Ola's grave. I took a copy of the verdict and placed it there. "We did it," I whispered. "We did it." Life didn't magically become perfect, but things began to mend. Slowly. The music community organized a tribute show for Ola. I was invited. I wore a white dress, not for celebration, but for closure. They played the songs. Big names sang in his honor. The crowd sang along. I stood backstage with Toluwani, watching strangers love a man they once mocked. The royalties from Ola's unreleased tracks started coming in. I used the money to set up a music foundation in his name for struggling artists facing abuse. One Sunday morning, I got a knock. It was the same pastor who once humiliated me. "I was wrong," he said. "Please forgive me." I didn't say anything. I just nodded. Some wounds don't need words. They just need time. Toluwani began speaking more, singing even. He would hum tunes his father once recorded. I bought him a small keyboard. One day he looked at me and said, "I want to sing like Daddy." I smiled. "Then sing, my love. Sing loud." Morenike published a book titled Tayo Speaks, The Woman They Almost Buried. It became a bestseller. She gave me all the profits. I used the money to rent a better place, start a small studio for kids who had lost parents. Tolu called it Daddy's House. Ola was posthumously awarded the National Arts Honor. I was invited to collect it. As I stood on stage, holding that plaque, I cried. Not because of the award, but because justice had bloomed. I visited my village. My mother cried when she saw me. "I judged you wrongly," she said. We hugged for the first time in years. I finally forgave her. Forgiveness is freedom, not just for them, but for you. On Tolu's 5th birthday, I wrote him a letter. "My son, this world may try to silence you, but always speak, always stand, because truth, like light, can't hide for long. Your father loved deeply, and I pray you grow to love that way too. Mom." They called me strong, but I wasn't. I was just a woman who chose to survive. They called me brave, but I was just a mother who wanted her son to know love. They called me many names, but the only one that mattered was Tayo, a woman who spoke when it hurt and healed when no one thought she would. And as I walked past Ola's mural one last time, with Toluwani holding my hand, I whispered to the wind, "Thank you for not letting me die in silence."
Voiceover by the talented Bology is, thank you for bringing every word to life with power and emotion. If this story moved you, shook you, or made you think twice about trust and betrayal, don't just watch, be part of the tale. Subscribe now to Tales by Sammie, African Folktales for more real, raw, and unforgettable African stories. Stories that teach. Stories that pierce. Stories that stay with you. Like, share with someone who needs to hear this. And turn on the notification bell, new stories drop every week. Because in every African tale, there's a truth we dare not ignore.